Welcome everyone. The webinar will begin shortly and will be recorded. Connect with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading on social media. On Instagram, follow the account at GLR Reading. On Facebook, like the page Campaign for GLR. And on Twitter, follow the account at Reading by Third. Please use hashtag Learning Tuesdays and tag us to tweet anything you learn from today's webinar, and we will be sure to retweet. We encourage you to share your questions, reflections, and observations on social media. Once again, we would love to connect with you. So on Instagram, follow the account at GLR Reading, like the page on Facebook, Campaign for GLR, and on Twitter, follow the account at Reading by Third. Okay, once again, welcome. My name is Sierra Sanchez, and I will be behind the scenes helping to produce this webinar. I have just a few housekeeping details before we get started. First, we would love for you to introduce yourself, so please use the chat box at the bottom of the screen to share your name, city or state, and your organization. Be sure to select panelists and attendees so that we all know who is here. All attendees are in listen-only mode, but we encourage your engagement by posting questions in the Q&A box. We will dedicate the last 20 to 30 minutes to respond to the questions you post during the discussion. This webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be emailed on Friday to all who registered. And we are streaming this webinar on our Facebook page on Facebook Live. All resources that you see shared as links in the chat will be compiled and shared in a follow-up email to all webinar registrants. And lastly, we will be posting a brief on-screen evaluation during the Q&A portion and highly encourage you to respond. This helps us with our commitment to continuous improvement. Lastly, before we start, I would just like to call your attention to our upcoming GLR Learning Tuesdays webinars. Next week on February 16th, we have an exciting double feature. First, at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we will continue our funder-to-funder conversations with our colleagues from the Patterson Foundation and their partners for the Center for Disaster Philanthropy and an exploration of how funders and disaster philanthropy can draw on their expertise to inform the broader philanthropic response to this COVID disaster, with a session titled A Disaster Within a Disaster, Philanthropy Responds to Learning Loss. Then at 3 p.m. Eastern Time that same day, we hope you will join us again for an important GLR partner webinar, where we will engage in a discussion with several of our mission-critical partners in a session titled The Power of Parents, Supporting and Equipping Parents to Lead Change. Lastly, on February 23rd at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, we will explore family engagement in the time of COVID, as you can see on the screen. Please save the date, and we will be sure to add links to these upcoming learning opportunities in the chat box to register. Joining you now is Emily Samos, consultant with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. Thank you and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Sierra, and hello, everybody. Welcome to each and every one of you, and thanks for joining us for today's GLR Learning Tuesday session titled EdTech, How School Leaders Are Leveraging Technology to Accelerate Student Learning. And today's webinar continues our Learning Loss Recovery Challenge series of GLR Learning Tuesdays webinars, where we are lifting up effective strategies and approaches for mitigating learning loss and supporting children's development. And over the past several weeks, we have deeply explored the new research demonstrating that many more students are landing on the wrong side of the growing achievement gap, also demonstrating the need for both high-touch and especially high-tech strategies are needed to enable a rapid and large-scale response. The challenge is determining how and which technology tools and resources can be leveraged to accelerate learning, especially for students from economically disadvantaged circumstances who may most need the technology-based interventions, but yet have the most barriers to accessing those tools. So in our discussion today, we have the excellent opportunity to first learn from 3 district leaders who will discuss how and why they decided to implement EdTech in their district plans and what factors help them determine which tools could work to accelerate learning for their students district-wide. They will then introduce executives of the technology-based education companies behind the innovative learning tools they are implementing across their school systems. And this was before and now, of course, during the COVID pandemic. We will have the opportunity to learn about Footsteps to Brilliance, Book Nook, and DreamBox, and how they have been effective in accelerating learning, early learning, literacy, and math for all students across school districts in Compton, California, Napa County, California, and Memphis and Shelby County, Tennessee. And before we meet our featured speakers, I have the privilege of introducing our moderator and an award-winning bilingual 4th grade literacy teacher and EdTech learning consultant, Griselda Young-Ojeda. Griselda will then introduce our co-presenters. So Griselda has been an elementary school bilingual educator for over a decade and was honored Bilingual Teacher of the Year in the A-Leaf Independent School District in Houston, Texas. And she now serves as an educational consultant with multiple EdTech companies, including Edmentum and Imagine Learning. So Griselda, I now turn it over to you. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you for the warm introduction, Emily. It's a pleasure to be here with you all as your moderator today. I appreciate everyone for taking the time just to join us for our Learning Loss Recovery Challenge webinar series. We have a lot of great content today. And I want to start by just reminding everyone that in-depth bios for all speakers have been posted, would be posted in the chat, and any resources and relevant EdTech links will also be shared throughout the session. So I do want to go ahead and get us started with some quick introductions. And to start us off, we have Dr. Darin Brawley, who is currently in his 8th year as superintendent of the Compton Unified School District in California. Under his leadership, CUSD has benefited from a tremendous turnaround. His leadership is focused on eliminating opportunity gaps for students and has resulted in Compton Unified being a premier STEAM district. Unfortunately, Dr. Burt was called into a meeting, but we do have his lovely director of academics here instead with us. Monica Jordan has been with Memphis City Schools, Shelby County Schools in Memphis, Tennessee for over 20 years. She has held many roles, including high school English teacher, literacy coach, NET project research coordinator, and academic program director. In her current role, she supports the Chief Academic Officer to implement academic initiatives and programs serving over 100,000 students. We also have Michael Lombardo, who is the founder and CEO of Nook, an award-winning social enterprise that uses artificial intelligence and other adaptive technologies to support reading skill growth at school, at home, and in the community. Previously, he served as CEO of Reading Partners and has published research on volunteer-based reading programs. We also have Dr. Barbara Nemko, who is the Superintendent of Schools with the Napa County Office of Education in California. She was the first superintendent to scale digital resources countywide to close the achievement gap for early learners. During school closures due to COVID-19, Dr. Nemko seamlessly transitioned to virtual learning and preventing learning loss for students. She will have to step up for a meeting, but we hope to have her back during the Q&A session. And also joining us is Ilene Rosenthal, who is the CEO and co-founder of Footsteps to Brilliance, a breakthrough educational software company that accelerates student achievement by uniting the power of mobile gaming with the latest in cognitive research. Footsteps to Brilliance has won numerous awards and recognitions for its work in children's early learning. Our last panelist is Jessie Wooley-Wilson. She is president and CEO of DreamBox Learning. Prior to joining DreamBox, she held executive positions at leading EdTech companies, including Blackboard, Leapfrog, and Kaplan. She has been a featured speaker at TEDx, Rainer, South by Southwest Education, and Ernst & Young named her the honorable mention of Entrepreneur of the Year in the Pacific Northwest region. Before opening up, I do want to go ahead and just kind of start this off with a quote from an author and a podcaster of The Innovator's Mindset, George Couros. Technology will not replace great teachers, but technology is in the hands of the great teacher. In hands of great teachers can be transformational. You know, coming from an educator perspective, I want to share a little bit about my story. I have to admit that, like, you know, many educators at first, I was skeptical of using technology and guilty of resisting against initiatives to incorporate technology into my instructional practice. And to be honest, I saw it as an intruder in my classroom, as an unnecessary add-on and another ineffective tool with bells and whistles that didn't deliver on its promise of improving achievement rates and engaging students. At times, I often felt threatened. How could a program do my job? Is it doing a better job than me? Am I being replaced? Having to adapt my way of teaching to include technology, challenge my original beliefs around what education should look like and how students learn best. I didn't want to let that go. As we know, change is difficult. It's easier for some more than others, but it is called for to improve our educational systems. I no longer have that negative sentiment towards educational technology. As I open my mind and my classroom up to the possibilities of technology integration and witness the enthusiasm, not just from my students, but my colleagues for using technology, I began to get a sense, that it could actually be a viable tool and could harmoniously coexist alongside my beliefs and just my teaching style. Most importantly, I recognize that investing time in learning how to navigate the EdTech tool, establishing fidelity of usage and appropriately embedding it into the curriculum in a meaningful way paid off. These efforts resulted in the student academic gains that had been promised. And once I saw the proof in pudding, I was hooked. Based on my experience working with districts nationwide as an educational consultant, I found that the trick to making EdTech solutions work and stick with teachers needing to integrate technology seamlessly into the curriculum instead of viewing it as an add-on, an afterthought, or an event. And this can only happen when leadership provides a clear expectation, guidance, and commitment to establishing systems which prioritize and show commitment to the chosen EdTech solution and the program that will improve that student outcome. So basically, teachers need proof of the impact of EdTech to see that they can have a positive impact on student achievement. They want to see commitment from leadership and that they really truly are partners and will provide the necessary professional development to help them gain confidence in the tool. But most importantly, leaders just need to make the positives about technology so loud that the negatives are most impossible to hear. So today you have a great group of leaders that have done just that. They will share their success stories for how they have accomplished sustainable EdTech solutions that are addressing learning loss, and most importantly, getting the buy-in from educators to see how technology can work for them and not against them. So truly, truly, you are in for a treat today. We're fortunate to have secured a distinguished group of leaders as panelists for today that have extensive expertise in early childhood, literacy, EdTech, and leadership. They will each have an opportunity to share the success stories that will enlighten you. You will walk away with concrete best practices to incorporate their leadership moves into your strategy to leverage EdTech tools for hybrid or in-person learning, and success criteria to consider for addressing the learning loss gap that is truly at the forefront of everybody's mind here at home and across the world. So with that being said, we want to move on with our presentation to our first presenter, Dr. Nemko. Would you please go ahead and just get us started by sharing a bit about your district and the students in Napa County? The floor is yours.
Griselda, thank you. We're very glad you saw the light. And your reaction is like most of us who've been in education for a long time. Initially, technology seemed like a foreign thing and we wanted to resist. So I am fortunate that I am from Napa County. I'm from New York, if you haven't picked up on the accent, but I'm currently in Napa County. And when you think of Napa County, many of you have probably visited here, and you think of this beautiful countryside and lots of wealthy vintners. But we are not an entirely Chardonnay sipping population. And in fact, Napa County's student population is very different. We are a hospitality county. People come for the wine, for the hotels and the restaurants. And the people who own those are the wealthy people. But the people who work in those are the people who live in the community, and those are the children that come to our schools. Now, as a professional educator, when my daughter was born, I did what most of you did when your children were born. That is, you start talking to them on day one, and you never stop. You bring them home, you narrate the day. So you're talking to a 2-day-old child, and you're saying, look at your beautiful room and those lovely murals on the wall. Do you see the giraffe? Now we're going to have breakfast, and then we're going to go visit grandma. And I talked so much, I have the feeling that this poor little infant thought to herself, shut up already, Ma, I've had enough. But because of all that talking, she was reading by the time she was about 2 years old, because we talked to her, we read her books every day. And when you read the same book 17 times, the child makes that eye sound correspondence and then pretends to read the book, but eventually is reading the book. So reading was learned naturally. Our population, if we go to the next slide, in Napa County, you can see that our preschool population is about 77% Hispanic. And for the most part, English is their second language. When they come to us in preschool, many of them don't speak English at all. And that was a big challenge for us, because if you think of the children who come from professional families and enter kindergarten, research now tells us they've heard 30 million more words than children who come from less advantaged homes, particularly if English is not the first language. 30 million words more for children from professional homes. So when you're learning to read, what is reading if not decoding speech written down? If you're decoding something written down that when you hear it, you don't know what it means, it's much harder to learn how to read. My office operates 24 preschool classes, so we do all of the public preschool in the county. And our children were coming to us each year with a huge gap, about 2 to 3 years behind other kids because they didn't speak English. So by the time they were getting to kindergarten, they were bringing that gap with them, and we decry the achievement gap of 2 to 3 years that we see in this population, and yet we've never been able to eliminate it. We can shorten it a little bit, but we've never eliminated it all the way through the K-12 system. Lucky me, I happened to meet Ilene Rosenthal back, well, I knew her for about 25 years, but she started talking to me at about 2008, 2009, about Footsteps to Brilliance and how she was trying to close the achievement gap for preschool kids. And, you know, like everything else, when somebody you know or a friend of yours tells you about this brilliant idea, you say, okay, yeah, and now where are we going to lunch? But
Right.
I had a granddaughter who had just been born, and she was about 2 years old in 2010. iPads were brand new. Ilene was showing me Footsteps on an iPad, and I said to her, okay, put the Footsteps on my iPad, and if my 2-year-old granddaughter, who was ruled entirely by random electrical impulses and had the attention span of a gnat, if she can focus on this, I will know you have something. We did, and she did. From the minute I opened up the iPad and showed her that story, she was mesmerized. Why? Because when she would tap the screen, she could make things happen. She could make the cow moo, she could make the duck quack, she could make the clock go tick tock, and she was in control of that. Also, as the iPad reads the story out loud, the words are there and each word is highlighted in the color red. So that helps with the visual sound correspondence. So she absolutely adored it. And there were games to play and colors to learn. And it was so rich and so filled with different kinds of stories and things to do that she was hooked. So
if I can just interject here. So I'm hearing that it was, very engaging, right, for your granddaughter as well. But, taking us back to, your slide and kind of the population that you're serving.
I'm just getting there, Griselda.
Go. I'm
So
just curious about that move to just, consolidate.
I was in DC for a meeting, and I had one of the vintners who helps fund programs with me, introduced him to the program. He came back, went immediately to one of our districts and said, if you will run a pilot program, because of course Footsteps is English and Spanish, and you can touch the screen and toggle back and forth. If you will run a pilot program, I will pay for the iPads, and you just, I'll pay for half of the iPads. So we did that. We ran a pilot program in the summer for 4 weeks, and 16 kids, all of whom spoke English as a second language. The kindergarten teacher came in to this preschool boot camp program, which is what it was. It was for 4 weeks before they went to kindergarten. And she walked in like you were, with her arms folded, and she was furious. How dare we bring technology into a preschool? They should be singing and dancing. And she watched as we showed this program, and she came in the first day like that. And by the end of that day, her arms had been uncrossed. But she came back again the next day because she was going to catch us doing something wrong. And by the end of the second day, we bought her pom-poms because she was now the cheerleader for the program.
Right.
She could not believe the level of involvement that the children had with this program. The teacher had a television screen, and we projected it on that so the kids could all see it. And they also had it on their iPads. At the end of the 4 weeks, we did a debrief program, a debrief meeting, talking about what worked, what didn't. All 4 kindergarten teachers from that school came. And we were planning to take the 16 iPads that we had purchased and send 4 to each of the 4 kindergarten classes as a center that they could use. And they said, we demand that every child have an iPad. We demand, it's an equity issue. We want this program. That's how we got started. So
Right.
then after 2 years of running it there and using it in other summer boot camps, I realized my office runs 24 preschool classes. Why weren't my teachers using it? My teachers had the same idea. And
Right.
when we first brought them in and told them that we were going to give them iPads because we wanted them to use it in the program, if looks could kill and if I could read minds, what they all did as they stared at me was they thought, make me, bitch. But we persevered. So we used some carrots and some sticks, mostly carrots. We gave them the iPads in the spring. We said, take it home, play with it, learn how to use it. Then bring it back, then we'll put footsteps on it, play with that for a while, and then in the spring we will start the program. And if you use the program with fidelity in your classrooms, we will give you a one-time off salary schedule stipend of $1,000. So I have 24 classes, 16 teachers. This was not a huge amount of money in our budget, and the aides in the classroom got $500 for that. And so they tried it. And exactly the same thing happened. In fact, we had a teacher come to a board meeting at the end of the year and say, I was going to retire at the end of this year because every year the children came in with lower and lower skills. I cannot believe how much they are able to learn using this technology. And I don't want to retire. That was in 2010. She's still with us. Our teachers love it. If I tried to take it away, they would kill me. So does it work? Oh my God. In the initial work with it, we did the Peabody picture vocabulary test to pre and post, and the results were statistically significant and kind of off the charts. We stopped doing that only because it's very labor intensive. It's one-to-one teacher and child, and you can't do that on a wide scale. We also, in 2014, went community-wide. So we offered this to every family in the county that has a preschool child at no cost to them. The beauty of Footsteps is it works on any device, your phone, your iPad, your tablet, your computer. So we didn't have to give the children tablets to take home in terms of the community use. Of course, we provided for the kids in our program.
Mhm.
And in order to let them know about it, we had meetings at each of the preschools in each of the districts, and we invited incoming families that weren't going to send their kids to preschool to come and learn about this. We helped them download it onto their devices, and we showed them that you use this not like a piece of technology like a television where you sit your child down in front of it and leave, but this is reading the book to them. So you put the child on your lap and the iPad, just like you would hold a book, and you read it with them. That it's part of what every parent wants their child to succeed. Our parents were like all the others. They wanted to read to their children, but they didn't read English. They didn't speak English, so they couldn't do it. And one of the beautiful unintended side effects of this program was parents told us how much their English improved, because you can toggle back and forth. So even on a particular word, if you're not sure, you're letting the iPad read in English to your child, you're not sure what the word means, you toggle it back to Spanish, you get the Spanish word. So it's miraculous. And then they felt so much more comfortable in working with the schools and their teachers because their English was so much better. So we have been using it now all these years. We've had a number of evaluation studies done. And let me look at this again. If you'll notice on the pictures, one is a little card that we hand out. If we see people with preschool age children, we hand them a card and say, you know, you can get this at no cost to you. And
Right.
you see them all the time in restaurants, and the kids are always on their parents' device. They know how to use the parents' device better than the parents do. But now we have a real educational program for them. We took out ads on buses. We put big banners on the buses so people could see that. We did ads in movie theaters at holiday time when people tend to go to the movies pre-COVID, and that's how we got the word out. We also do lots of parent workshops for the preschool kids in our program that are open to others, and we show them all the ways you can enrich the program. So now if we go to the next slide.
Thank you, Dr. Barbara Nemko. What I'm seeing here is that you did a beautiful job of marketing and getting the community involved and the parents, and also just the success of the pilot that you started to encourage others to kind of follow the model. It's absolutely brilliant. We do want to give some time for our next presenter to go, if that's all right with you.
Okay.
Thank you. So, you know, as Dr. Nemko, you know, expressed with all the success that she's had, we're going to kind of turn it over now to welcome Monica, who is going to be sharing a little bit about their success at Shelby County in Tennessee. And I'm just going to see if she's available to go ahead and get us started there. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Nemko.
Good afternoon. So while we're waiting for the slides to catch up, again, my name is Monica Jordan, and I am coming to you live from Shelby County Schools, which is situated in the heart of Memphis, Tennessee. Our school district is the largest in the state of Tennessee, but also one of the largest among America's public school districts. So just wanted to give you an idea of where we are by the numbers here, and why it would be important for us to leverage EdTech in order to benefit as many of our students as we possibly can. So if you'll transition to the next slide for me, please. So pre-pandemic, we were already engaged in a relationship with Book Nook. They came to Memphis through our largest healthcare provider, Methodist Le, and Methodist was in partnership with another organization called the Urban Child Institute. And so in the 2018-19 school year, it really just started as a supplemental after-school tutoring program. But then Methodist Le coordinated with 3 church-based programs. It grew to 19 partner programs, serving about 900 Shelby County students in the spring of 2020. And so we were interested in Book Nook for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's a live, synchronous program, which we know is the most impactful kind of instruction. And then we also appreciated that the program is based on the science of reading, and that Book Nook had already built a track record of success with similar districts like Oakland Unified. So because we so value our community partnerships and the fact that Book Nook supports volunteers as being part of the work, and they'd already built this coalition, this was just a very exciting kind of nexus of events for us. And so lastly, it was very crucial to us that the program supports Spanish-speaking students and families, because so many of our technology tools do not. So prior to the pandemic, Shelby County Schools had committed to piloting Book Nook as part of our intervention block for Tier 3 students in 20 schools. And so transition to the next slide and you'll see what happened. Distance learning in Shelby County Schools. So when the pandemic hit, we had to figure out a way to not let all the good work, not just with Book Nook, but other things that we've been doing as well, not let that end. So we very quickly mounted a campaign to distribute 95,000 laptops and tablets and hotspots across our entire district. And so we were able to utilize Microsoft Teams for a single sign-on experience so that our students could seamlessly learn. And when we undertook this, it then also gave us a chance to continue with the great work that we were doing with Book Nook. But parallel to the distribution of the devices, though, what we felt was really key to making anything that we were going to do work was to provide robust professional development for all the stakeholders. So that included not just teachers, but principals and families and community stakeholders. So that way, so there's nothing worse than putting the device in a hand of someone who doesn't know how to use it or understand how to leverage it. So that was really paramount to the success.
So I kind of heard, Monica, that you already kind of had established these, that your teachers were already aware of these different, technology tools to utilize. And I know for us that are larger districts, coming from Houston ISD and those districts like that, what would you say, in how is it different, thinking about deploying an EdTech solution such as Book Nook in the context of that sort of level of scale, because we do have rural districts that might, be able to mitigate, the issue a little bit easier. But what did you kind of highlight and what did you see was most effective for you all?
I think one of the main things really was creating continuity of communication. So we had a sense that there was a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear associated with how are my children going to continue learning? Again, not just utilizing Book Nook, but other areas that we wanted to make sure that folks could take advantage of. So I would say that that was the number one thing for us, was to make sure that we had consistent, streamlined communication so that we could address all of the different things that were giving folks anxiety. So again, it could be something as simple as where to pick up the device, but it can also be like how to keep it charged, how to take care of it. And then from there, how to create a space in your home where you can use the device in a way that you're going to get the most out of it. Because if you haven't had access to one before, and that's what we found in Shelby County, there was a significant digital divide. If you haven't had access before, how do we very quickly kind of acclimate you to using this device and getting the most out of it that you can, but being respectful that there were a lot of steps that needed to happen in order to catch people up? Because again, the lack of equity, we had so many families that just didn't have access. So we were particularly sensitive to making sure that we didn't just get the devices out there, that again, we had that ongoing consistent communication and provided that ongoing learning that wasn't just about here's how to log in and make sure that your child gets class every day, but all the different things that the device could do to utilize instruction.
Wonderful. And it is that sensitivity that's going to make it more welcoming and for them to feel confident in the tool. So yeah, that sounds awesome. Great.
And so again, just to continue to the next slide, just to highlight a little bit of, what we have been doing with Book Nook is just to take it from the pilot phase and bring it up to, 40 elementary schools that are participating, along with 35 community partnership programs. And right now our reach covers over 7,000 of our highest need students across Shelby County. And so the question earlier about like scalability and where do you focus your efforts, because this is not necessarily part of like the tier 1 90-minute literacy block, but in fact an add-on, we really wanted to focus our efforts with the students that we felt would benefit the most in the shortest amount of time. And so that's why we started with an initial group across 40 schools, but hope to continue to scale up the program as time goes on, which Michael will talk about later in today's presentation.
Thank you, Monica. I appreciate sharing all your insights and all the good work that's happening in Shelby County Schools. Now, I'd like to just move us along here and invite Dr. Brawley into the discussion next. And just as we set things up, and the floor is yours, Dr. Brawley.
Okay, for whatever reason, my video is not showing. But Compton Unified School District is located in Los Angeles County. We represent about 21,000 students. And we have a Latino population of about 85%, 15% African American, and 34% English language learners. 35 schools, and we have a 96% free and reduced lunch rate within our school district. 952 teachers and a total of about 1,200 certificated staff. We have a graduation rate of 94% across our comprehensive high schools. And when our alternative education population is factored in, that reduces us down to about 82.2%. As far as Compton goes, EdTech became a part of our strategy approximately 7 years ago. A component of that was a huge investment in technology, was achieved in part by partnerships with Apple, the Connect Ed grant initiative, as well as Verizon's initiative around one-to-one iPads for all students. Though we had a focus with both Connect Ed grant as well as Verizon initiative, we also invested a ton of money in EdTech as well. And we purchased a lot of Chromebooks as well as a lot of iPads. Once the pandemic hit, we had to address connectivity issues and provide learning platforms that we believe would best address the learning of our students. We accomplished this through the creation of course content, as well as the building of lessons in Google Classroom by content experts at both elementary and secondary level. We also focused on learning platforms such as DreamBox, which I'm going to delve deeply into. Also, iReady, My Writing Coach, Next Gen Math, Carnegie Math, and Khan Academy. And we also focused on learning apps such as Google Classroom, G Suite, Google Meets, Nearpod, Formative, Flipgrid, Screencastify, and Edpuzzle. In terms of addressing equity of learning, we wanted to make sure that Compton students had the same access to technology as students in more well-to-do areas. We wanted our students prepared in the area of 21st century learning skills because the jobs of the future will require that, particularly the ability of students to become critical thinkers, to communicate, focus on creativity, as well as collaboration. For the purpose of differentiation, we felt it was a need to have blended learning opportunities for our students. And EdTech was mobilized to create a distance learning website for students and teachers, and some of which you will see in the presentation. So with that in mind, why don't we go to
And while we're going to that slide, Dr. Brawley, I'm just curious as far as your partnership for getting connectivity to your students. I know in some instances here in the area Conroe, they put buses with wireless connection for folks to be able to log in and have the instruction that needed to happen during the day. What were some challenges there for you all, and what were some successes there?
Well, like I said, the partnership with Apple and Verizon really assisted our district. 5 schools with connectivity and iPads through the Connect Ed grant, as well as 4 schools through Verizon, the Verizon initiative, and an additional 4 schools now. So all iPads and connectivity, and that went a long way. So, but we also invested heavily in our own Chromebooks and iPads, as well as hotspots to address the issues with connectivity within the district where other students have problems accessing internet. So if we, talk about our DreamBox piece, the initial onboarding and the adoption was a critical piece that happened a year before this, and the focus has been really on continuous improvement associated with that. So as we transition to the next slide, slide 4, you'll see the metrics associated with how many students are, participating in the process, the average number of minutes that they are logged on, as well as the average number of lessons that they're participating in. And we go through this process in terms of analyzing this throughout the year. We go to slide 5. You will see that our elementary schools are doing very well with the implementation, and towards the end, you will see the middle schools. So the middle schools present some opportunities for us to improve upon. But overall, the implementation of DreamBox is going very well. Slide 6, we can see what is happening in terms of performance across the grade levels. And you can see the difference in terms of, let's say, the primary grades as well as the intermediate grades, if you will. And even though you see that grades 6, 7, and 8 is high growth, we have some issues that we need to address in terms of middle school. But for the most part, our K-8 schools are knocking it out of the box.
And as far as usage and just getting the parents in to support, the students logging in and making sure that they're keeping and that they're monitoring also as well, how are you kind of navigating that piece?
Well, we have professional development pieces that are ongoing in terms of both the teachers, students, and the parents. And DreamBox staff has been very good at addressing that with us. And we just continue to do what is necessary to bring people along and to continue our continuous improvement journey related to the implementation of it. In this slide, we see the growth that is occurring. And one of the things that really shows is what happens when students are completing more lessons. We see that we have a lot of students that are making up deficiencies that they had from the prior grade levels. And on slide 8, you see the process that we engage in with DreamBox. Next slide, please. In terms of an ongoing process where we're engaged with them, they're engaged with us to make sure that we have the necessary PD to continue moving forward. Slide 9 just really is an overview of what was created, some of the stuff that I talked about earlier. Next slide. Where the building of the distance learning resources were done through supportive staff within the district. Next slide, please. You also see that there's a focus that we have within the district in terms of equitable achievement outcomes. I won't talk through that, but you see the 5 bullets there that you can refer to. Next slide. And we've talked about this in the opening, so there's no need for me to repeat that. Next slide, please. This kind of goes to show some of the growth that we've had within the district. If you look at the bottom, you'll see the continuous improvement of the graduation rates. Actually, that slide needs to be updated because as I said earlier, 94% now with our comprehensive high schools. The overall comes down slightly when we incorporate our alternative school sites, but you also see the FAFSA completion rates that both exceed the state and national average. And then you see a little more information about what our focus within the organization is all about. And that concludes my presentation. And
thank you, Dr. Brawley. It truly does take partnership, from within the community and through EdTech partnerships with different companies as DreamBox. I congratulate you on the success that you've had with them at Compton Unified School District. And we are going to now be kicking it off to hear a little bit more from the innovators behind the tech tools being used so effectively by these districts. So I know Dr. Nemko had to go to an important meeting, but I would like to ask Ilene from Footsteps to Brilliance. So Ilene, if you're ready to go, the floor is yours now.
Thank you so much. Would you turn to the next slide, please? Well, I had the great fortune when I was developing Footsteps to Brilliance to have many conversations with Ralph Smith. And the key takeaway that we found we were both aligned on is that if we were going to change the narrative of early literacy, we were going to have to bring the more stakeholders than just the schools and the children. We would need to bring in the parents, and we would need to bring in the whole community. So when I was building Footsteps to Brilliance, we broke the 4 walls of the classroom and we created what we call model innovation cities, sometimes model innovation communities. And these are turnkey collective impact models where we actually build a geofence around an entire city, and everybody in that city is able to download the Footsteps to Brilliance programs for free, so that you can really make sure that everybody in the community can be supporting early literacy. And that means the schools, the parents, the faith-based community, our tutors, everybody. Next slide, please. So we realized that in order to make this happen, things had to be engaging, they had to be simple to use, and they had to be standards-based. So we developed an early learning ecosystem that goes pre-K through third grade that literally is learning, kindergarten readiness, and third grade reading proficiency in a box, easy to use. Next slide, please. And our model innovation communities tell us that the key to our partnership with them is that we address the equity needs. And we do this in many ways. First of all, we are literally device neutral. Every parent has a smartphone. They can use it for Footsteps to Brilliance. They have a tablet, a computer. It doesn't matter Apple or Android. Mm-hmm. Internet access is problematic. However, if you're in a Wi-Fi area, you can download everything in Footsteps to Brilliance, use it offline. When you're online, the data will roll up. We know that 80% of our English language learners in the United States come from Spanish-speaking backgrounds. So we developed an English-Spanish toggle switch. Literally, you can go from page to page and read something in English and read it in Spanish. We knew that parents needed training, so we developed a parent university. And of course, we support our teachers. We even have a 24/7 help desk so that when parents need help, they can reach out to us seamlessly.
And that's a common theme, the support of the parents. Now, a lot of companies are putting that out. And I'm just curious, how, just about maybe highlighting one thing that's different, pre and post COVID, what adjustments did you make, right?
I actually want you to go to the next slide because I think I could do that through a case study. All right, so that's a great question. So I thought that given the fact that the Campaign for Grade Level Reading always brings many organizations together under their umbrella, I wanted to tell you about the United Way of North Central Massachusetts and their innovation zone. So they created a few years ago an innovation zone where they brought 10 rural school districts together with their local university, the University of Fitchburg. And basically the schools and the United Way work together to help one of their pillars, which is to make sure that children come to school prepared and read proficiently by third grade. All right, then COVID hits. And what the United Way finds is that the parents are in a really bad situation. They have food insecurity, they have job insecurity, and they really don't know what to do with their youngest children, because we know the most vulnerable are the youngest children. So the United Way decided that they would do a winter reading challenge. Now, I want everybody who's an educator in this room to tell me December 20th to January 20th, how much time kids are going to spend reading. Right? That's the time when they're on vacation, they're not thinking. But they did something very clever. They distributed this winter reading challenge on social media. They also distributed it through the schools. But the most important thing is that they were giving meal kits because of this food insecurity. And in those meal kits, they were putting information about how you download Footsteps to Brilliance for free, etc. And the only thing I can say is that the parents ate it up. So we really didn't know what to expect. In fact, if we had gotten 100 participants, we would have been happy. This is a rural communities. They had over 950 participants in this winter reading challenge. And the students were on Footsteps to Brilliance in this 1 month period, 30 days, 1,234 hours. They were both reading and writing. And when we looked at the data, we saw data that was amazing, that where the children started in all the domains of literacy, phonological awareness, phonics, language, reading comprehension, logic, and reasoning, you can see there was tremendous progress made. If you could turn to the next slide, please. I just want to say that when you unite a whole city, a whole community around literacy, you can do some really exciting things. So this was in Colusa County. In Colusa County, everybody, of course, now has thousands of books, songs, and games that are downloaded right on their telephone or on their tablet. And they decided to do a reading with Pinky, and Pinky is the educator in the slide, and Mrs. J. And Mrs. J is a wonderful educator, Jennifer Jelovich. And what they do now weekly is they open Footsteps to Brilliance up. They read with the children. They model how to read with the children. The parents are there because we're virtual, it's COVID. But then everything is a book unit. So the children send in their answers to questions and actually write their own books that they then publish in their newsletter. So that's been, it's basically, we wanted to create a situation where people could have fun and they could be really creative in how they use the application. Next slide, please. But truthfully, what our teachers like best, especially during COVID, is that they have the opportunity to really look at the dashboard and immediately see which children need extra help, which need acceleration, and they can then create those virtual classes and really progress the children, because that is what's so key.
Right, absolutely. The advancement is going to take place on that smaller one-on-one time with the students. So this is a great piece that is incorporated into the program. This is great.
Thank you so much. Next slide, please. Well, I am very excited to say that we are in the process of opening up for our next cohorts of Model Innovation Cities. But we also have something special for anybody interested, which is we put together a sample of bilingual books, songs, and games pre-K through third grade. It's a library of free resources. And if you are part of this, obviously, conference today, you can go to tinyurl.com/F2B-GLR, F2B Footsteps to Brilliance, GLR grade level reading, and you can get these resources for free. We'd love to hear from you if you want any extra information, but I know that time is of the essence, so I'm going to let you go to the next speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ilene, for sharing more about collective impact model that Footsteps to Brilliance created. And again, congratulations on all the success that you're having. And I'm sure you're going to have quite the interest here from our folks, and hopefully it continues to grow. I'm going to thank you. So what I'd like to do now is ask Monica if she could please just bring your partner from Book Nook, Michael Lombardo, to tell us a little bit more about that relationship and partnership with Book Nook.
Happy to. And so Michael is here with us and his camera's already on. So Michael, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Monica. We're delighted to have such a strong partnership with Shelby County Schools and to work with a district that's really leaning into some of the device access and equity issues that we talked about earlier, and to several of our other program partners who have been filling up the text window. Thank you all for your commitment to supporting students during these times. For some of you who are new to the conversation, I thought we'd zoom out a little bit and talk about what the Book Nook program is and how it works. So if you can go to the next slide for me, please. As Monica referenced, we are the only synchronous reading instruction platform out there. So this is something that adults, which we call reading guides, do live with children. And so it's a collaborative experience that is meant to have a really impactful element for student reading achievement, while also supporting socio-emotional development so that students are working with caring adults. Oh, and I see, thank you, Kathy, for the kind words from St. Mary Magdalene Catholic School. And what we do is provide basically a synchronizing effect across devices so that students can log in from wherever they are, whether it's at home during distance learning, as with Shelby County Schools, or whether it's in person for those of the schools that are able to be in person. We also work with many of the community hub centers, which are sort of the equity-oriented version of learning pods that cities and school systems have been offering so that students can come in limited and COVID-safe surroundings, get online if they don't have internet at home, and get other services. So Book Nook happens in all those contexts. Our devices are synchronized over the internet, so you can be sitting next to each other or you can be working by distance learning. and you're working together, either one-on-one in a small group or in a classroom environment, doing text and curricular activities that are personalized for each student, so that we're working on specific reading skills and state standards that every student needs, but really focusing on where students have growth opportunities and not covering ground they've already got down. And as Monica referenced, we provide a Spanish language scaffolding around all of our content, using Spanish as the language of instruction to help students who are learning their English phonics and learning oral reading fluency and comprehension in English, as well as taking a biliterate approach to vocabulary development, so that we're helping students to both develop their English language vocabulary and their Spanish language vocabulary at the same time. Next
Thank you,
slide.
Michael. It seems like individualized learning is the way of the future. And so it's lovely to have that piece along with the social emotional learning point, you know, addressing those needs, especially after the kids have been taken out of socket, right? And getting them back into the motion of what they're accustomed to in education.
Yeah, thank you. I think the hardest part of distance learning for districts is that live synchronous teaching time. It's so important for children's development. It is the most impactful form of teaching, but it is the hardest thing to do over the internet. So I agree, it's really an important area for districts to focus on. We've admired how Shelby County Schools has prioritized it. As both, you know, I'm like the hair club for men. I'm both, you know, the president and I'm a member. So my children are Shelby County Schools students, so I see firsthand the dedication of educators and really attending to that human live teaching component that Shelby County Schools has prioritized.
I love it. It's really great. I can see that you have been have true success at Shelby County, and always when your students are there, you're a little bit more invested in making sure that things are, you know, are moving along smoothly and really helping the academic achievement of the population. So what can you tell us what's next for 2021 for you all and for Shelby County?
Yeah, absolutely. If you can cycle ahead a couple slides, and we'll try to keep this quick because I know we've got other folks to speak. These are our national data in terms of the impact of synchronous teaching. Because we gather data on students in real time, we were able to continue tracking their reading growth even after schools closed down. And so we're able to show that students who were utilizing Book Nook showed no COVID learning loss at all, and in fact actually gained in reading skills during spring distance learning. And then we published some data nationally this fall that showed that students were quickly narrowing the gaps that we saw when they first started using our app when school reopened or when distance learning began in the fall. One more slide and I can talk specifically about the results we saw in Shelby County Schools. Unsurprisingly, because of the data or the elements that Monica shared with you, our average student in Shelby County Schools was nearly a year behind in reading when we first saw them on the app. And by the end of the fall semester, we had shaved almost half of that gap off and put them on a trajectory to catching back up again, and had about doubled the pace at which they were moving through reading skills and developing forward. And then our last slide is, as we think about the future, thank you, Griselda, for asking. The state of Tennessee has made the largest appropriation in the history of the United States in early reading with a $100 million initiative called Reading 360. We are collaborating not just with Shelby County Schools, but with Metro Nashville Public Schools and Hamilton County Schools and Chattanooga to take advantage of this unprecedented opportunity to bring an array of supports around students, beginning with a massive tutoring effort that is gearing up this summer. The state has set it up with a family opt-in requirement, which means that the partnership that we brought to the table with Methodist of Honor Healthcare is crucial so that we can reach out to families through multiple channels to get them enrolled in this program. And so we will have Methodist of Honor Healthcare doing family outreach through their clinical practice, their home visitation programs. Shelby County Schools will be pushing messaging to their channels. We have the churches and congregations ready to go with people, you know, standing in the parking lots on Sunday, getting families signed up, of course, wearing masks. And we believe that just here in Memphis, we can reach 13,000 students with high-dose tutoring this summer, and we think we can get close to 50,000 statewide. So really an exciting time to be thinking about how technology can work together across organizations to address the gaps caused by COVID learning loss.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing about that and just all the insights that you provided us with that led to your success, right? And how you incorporate the community as well to, again, just make the mission grow, right? Thank you so much. What I'd like to do now is just turn it back over to to Dr. Brawley, if you're still on, and if you would like to bring on Jessie to just talk a little bit about that partnership with DreamBox.
Yeah, so we've had a partnership with DreamBox for the last 2 years. We started last year with the implementation of DreamBox, and we've had nothing but a great process in terms of continuous improvement that we've seen now. So that's a testament to the individuals that are over the account, one in particular, Nicole King, as well as the other individual that services the account, and the interaction that is a flawless process between both DreamBox and Compton Unified School District. So with no further ado, Jessie.
Thank you, Darin. I appreciate it. I'm very happy to be here with all of you. I know this has been a long afternoon for you, and so I'm just going to share with you some thoughts about how we are privileged to work with people like Compton Unified to really unlock learning potential in every child. At DreamBox, we really feel like talent exists everywhere, but opportunity doesn't. And we think that education and technology supported education could be the bridge between talent and opportunity. So we know the story. In 2005, NAEP scores were bad, 36% proficiency grade 4, and in grade 8, 30%. Almost 2020, 14 years later, not much progress. So we're talking about literacy in general, mathematics literacy, reading literacy. We have to prepare students with a foundational knowledge so that they can be successful in a globalized, information-driven world, and do it with joy. We're not seeking to just have kids survive. We want people to drive innovation as adults and as citizens. And so we know that parents believe that there's a place for technology and learning. We just don't think technology should digitize and make technical old processes that really haven't been working, like we just saw with those NAEP scores. So we want to try to find new ways. And at DreamBox, what we want to do is help develop conceptual understanding of mathematics. We want to delight and surprise both the learner and the learning guardian. And over the past decade or so, we're pleased to have worked with districts all across the country, in Canada and Mexico, to deliver K-8 digital math curriculum. So why so much enthusiasm? Why 5 million students? Why over 200,000 teachers? Because it works. We know that we're part of an industry that's been promising to revolutionize learning for a long time and have come up short. And so early on, we subjected ourselves to the scrutiny of independent evaluators to say, does DreamBox work? And in what conditions will it work? And what you'll see here is nearly 60% growth in just 1 hour. That's 5 lessons a week. And we continued that de-risking for people in learning communities, for principals, for district administrators. We wanted to make sure that you weren't martyring yourself, because we know you have precious time. So we took a look at Smarter Balance, Renaissance Star, NWEA MAP, and with all of them, with just 1 hour a week, you saw at least 50% growth, and sometimes 2x growth. So in the districts, most recently in 2019 and 20, when you get to 5 lessons or more per week, results are even more dramatic, over a grade and a half level of growth. So why is this happening? When you even take a look at an individual child who liked DreamBox enough to use it 9 lessons a week, this student moved from not proficient in 3rd grade to proficient in 4th grade on the Smarter Balance assessment. These are not anomalies. These are not anomalies. So our goal is not to just replace live instruction. Our goal is to complement live instruction with the appropriate use of technology. And we believe in technology that seamlessly integrates formative assessment models with curriculum. So we try to cultivate deep sense making, conceptual development, looking for structures, finding relationships. And we use these digital lessons to go beyond skill practice toward fluency, so that we can cultivate future mathematicians. It's using a lot of different methodology, self-directed rotation, whole class. And why does it work? It works because of the power of the intelligent adaptive engine. What you see here are 2 students really going through, 2nd graders going through our curriculum, one in red, one in purple. You'll notice that some of them are going forward, some of them are going back, some are going up, some are going down. Because in our model for adaptive learning, it's not just pace and place, it's actually pedagogical adaptation. So students are literally architecting their own learning path while they use the software. They're actually doing things so that we can understand how to meet them where they are, so that wherever they are, we understand what is the next best lesson for them. So with simple numeracy, some kids might be adding by 1, by 5, by 10. Some other kids might be subtracting and using a more efficient pathway to get the right answer. All of this goes into the platform so that we can adapt the pedagogy to meet the child where they are. We understand if they're failing in fractions. Is it because of decimal problems? Is it because of proportionality? We are taking a comprehensive look at how they're thinking and what they're doing on their pathway to proficiency.
Jessie, can I interrupt you for 1 second? This is Emily. Your slides seem to be frozen. We have only seen one slide that says thank you. Have you been advancing? Do we have a technical issue?
Yes, I have been advancing the whole time.
Uh-oh.
Well, I'm sorry about that. That's unfortunate. Can you see this slide?
Now we see it, yes.
So I'm sorry about that. I can make this presentation available in the chat room. I might ask you all to do that but I just wanted to end on a note about teachers. Again, I can't say this with more emphasis than it deserves. We are interested in engaging and delighting both the learner and the learning guardian. And what we did in response to COVID was we created a predictive model that would, within 3 weeks of recommended usage, just 5 lessons a week, just an hour, will give over 85% accuracy, so that district administrators will understand student by student who is on track for the end of year assessment. So everybody knows that the spring assessments have been canceled. So what do you do? What's been happening the last 6 to 8 months? How do you know how to modify your live instruction? Well, with DreamBox Predictive Insights, you can actually understand what has happened the last 6 or 8 months and understand how to modify your live instruction to make sure you meet the child where they are now post-COVID and get them back on track for the end of the year assessment.
Thank you, Jessie. And that's such a critical point, because like you said, what are you using in place of things that have been put to the side or not going to look the same for assessment? How are we going to move the kids? And I can speak for myself as a parent. My daughter used DreamBox, and we're fortunate that her school district and her school utilized it with fidelity, and so she was able to be on her independent track, really dig in and grow at her pace, right? And she loved it. She would always ask, and I'd hear from it. We, during parent conferences, we would be able to see what the students were doing. And so there's a lot to say about that piece, but specifically for teachers, I know they appreciate these additional assessments for them, because they are looking to fill those that unlearning space that students have, because of the situation we're in.
Well, my hope is that at some point we will have practice. You've heard a lot of different companies with a lot of different approaches, and right now we have policy that is dictating practice. Our hope collectively is that we get to a point where informed practice, like the ones you've seen today, can actually shape national and state policy, so we can do what's best for kids and what's best for learning.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jessie. I really appreciate all of your sites, all the work that DreamBox and all the EdTech companies are doing, and community organizations, nonprofits that are just coming together and trying to solve an issue, right? Everybody is, has the same goal and mission. So congratulations on your success as well. What we're going to do now is I just have a few things that I want to say, but I want to turn it over to a few of our panelists, just to kind of, bring out some of the takeaways that you have from your colleagues and what they've shared. And I'd like to open up the space to Dr. Brawley, Monica, Dr. Nemko, if you're still on. Just any final reflections that you want to share with the group. What does that mean for your district moving forward? And this is going to be a piece right before we move into the Q&A. I know we have participants that have some questions that have been asked in the Q&A, so we want to make sure that we get to those as well.
Well, for Compton Unified School District, what we do is really about eliminating the achievement gap as well as the opportunity gap. And we view things through a continuous improvement process. So, how can we perfect things? And regardless of what choice districts will make to implement, there's going to be some growing pains where you have to figure things out and get better at what you do. And what we've done for this year with many things, we have a And we've been doing it all along, but we're more focused on all of our data points now, where we're looking at everything that we implement, and we're looking at the growth associated with it. You know, principals have to talk to me and other cabinet members about how they're progressing with whatever it is that we're implementing within the district. And we do that through trackers and ongoing looks at data and usage. And that becomes a reflection point for people to take back with their teams at their school sites and figure out how to get better at it.
Thank you, Dr. Brawley. Appreciate that. Any of the other panelists? Monica, did you want to share one of your kind of takeaways here?
Sure. I just wanted to say how impressed I was just hearing, you know, the very significant work of our good colleagues across the nation, but also to let everybody know that we also have a very serious focus on data and let the data drive what we do and continue to do for our students. And so these EdTech tools really put that power in our hands, especially if, you know, even though we do have teams that are dedicated to collecting and sharing visualized data, we really can't get enough. We can't get enough of it in order to make the very difficult decisions that we need to make every day about accelerating achievement as quickly as we can. So just wanted to say how much I appreciate getting to hear all the wonderful things that other districts are doing and the partners that are helping them accomplish that.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that, Monica. And again, thank you for stepping in for Dr. Burt as well. I'm going to just remind participants, this is our Q&A time. So I'm just going to share my final thoughts as you kind of think of questions. You know, you have a great group of experts here to kind of help you navigate, you know, some maybe clarifications you have or some additional questions that are, you know, in line with like your specific implementation or approach to this distance learning initiative that's going on. But what I do want to say is just one thing that I've learned is that when thinking about moving forward, focusing on the question, what is best for learners, helps ensure you're making the right choices. The leaders here today on our panel have done just that. The students of the future are going to demand learning support that is appropriate for their situations and the context. Many of us didn't grow up in this educational setting, right? So it's a shift for everybody. And that's what they're going to require, nothing more, nothing less. So I believe educational innovation and advancement will only happen once we've all decided to just let go of the idea of doing business as usual. Instructional pedagogy is shifting and schools and educators must adapt. Remember that even before the pandemic, right? Schools were already completely moving away from that idea of computer labs to teach technology, you know, technological literacy and infusing technology through the entire building. You know, we started getting the little iPad carts. We're all experiencing a shift in our instructional pedagogy in which, well, technology is not, you know, no longer supplemental to our education system, and the education system somehow relied on technology from the beginning of the crisis and continues to do so. You notice that whether it was to disseminate information, to connect schools to families, or learners to teachers, or staff to leadership, many districts turned to technology for support. It provided learning continuity during the crisis, and it will be key to educational recovery. So with that being said, I'm gonna just kind of check here to see if we have any questions here. I have a question here from one of the participants. They said, great presenters. Are there any trial offers that, you know, our EdTech companies are providing or that Footsteps to Brilliance have to offer school districts and community members?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that tiny URL, F2B-GLR, just go in through there, fill that out. There's a comment section and we'll get back to them.
Perfect.
Yep,
And Griselda, I wanted
and we offer Book Nook as a free resource to teachers and students, and I'll put the link in the chat as well. Please go get online and use this tool to improve learning.
And I wanted to add that we have used Footsteps not only in preschool, it's a wonderful after-school remediation tool for students in kindergarten grades 1, 2, and 3 who are behind in reading skills, because it's so engaging and they enjoy it. We also have found that it's used in large amounts at home. because kids have fun with it, parents like it. And if you can engage the kids and they want to use it more, your results just keep going up. And that's what our data has shown.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nemko. And there is a question directed to Jessie. They were asking, do you have the DreamBox assessments? Is there a way to give them previews to that?
So the DreamBox model is a formative assessment model. And so DreamBox Predictive Insights actually captures the information after those 3 weeks that I was telling you, and then uses our data capabilities, machine learning capabilities, to give that high prediction for likelihood to succeed at the end of the year. So this is a longer conversation, a complex conversation, and I know we don't have that much time, but if you feel free to reach out to me at Jessie, I'll put it in the chat, Jessie@dreambox.com. I'll be very happy to connect you to the right people at DreamBox to walk you through it.
Thank you, Jessie. And just for the leadership panel, and as I asked this question, we do have a poll here just to kind of get feedback from participants regarding the session. But panelists, would you be able to share a little bit about the budgeting to ensure not only that you have the curriculum necessary, the EdTech tool that you need, but specifically around professional development? How do you balance that budget to make sure you're kind of checking off those boxes?
Well, in Compton, well, in any school district, I'll say this: there's enough money to do whatever it is you want to do. Never lose sight of that. There's enough money to do whatever it is that you want to do, what you're committed to doing. So we don't see money as an issue when it comes to addressing any areas associated with literacy, whether it's language arts, whether it's math. There's enough money for that. We budget a lot of money for professional development. The majority of our professional development occurs either after school or on Saturdays. Every once in a while, we will do something during the day, but we've tried to get away from that because the interruption to the instruction that occurs when you're doing PD during the days that students are there. So we don't see any issues in terms of purchasing whatever it is that we're focused on trying to turn around results in. We don't see any issues associated with professional development around setting aside the necessary funds to accomplish that.
And Griselda, one of the things that we did that was very powerful was we repurposed one of our preschool teachers early on in the program to work as an instructional coach in individual teachers' classrooms. Because no matter how much professional development you get, and no matter how good it is, when you're alone in your room, something always happens and it doesn't quite go right. And rather than have people get discouraged about it, they had their colleague, not somebody who flew in from somewhere else, but their friend who used to teach next door and now is helping with that. And that really made the whole program go very smoothly. We also repurposed somebody who was not a teacher to coordinate the entire program, because as it gets bigger and you have parent involvement and you have teacher things that are happening, and you have all of the reaching out and letting the community know, having somebody who was laser focused on that was extremely helpful.
Yeah, Barbara brings up a very good point. We have 6 EdTech specialists that are housed at the district office that go out to the sites and also conduct professional development through Zoom. And all of our school sites have invested title funding into specialists at the school site that do similar functions with teachers related to professional development. So, I mean, combined, I would say that there's probably about 50-something people within our organization providing professional development at the site level. And, you know, when you combine the 6 from the district, so not an issue at all.
Right, and it was interesting to see just the difference in how people transformed their professional development during this time, and kind of building in sacred times for teachers to get the professional development that needed to happen all along, working with your hybrid model or working with the kids that were at home learning. And so does anybody want to kind of provide some points for kind of that scheduling of professional development to really be effective for you all? What really helped out in that respect?
I mean, I think there's a short term, a medium term, and a long term. The short term was just response to pandemic, Even teachers who were using blended learning before COVID weren't ready when it was forced, scaled, 100% distance learning. So there's, even with people who are familiar with solutions, there's still more support that teachers need and deserve. Medium term is, what can we do to make sure that what they're doing in their core programs aligns with the supplemental to get the biggest bang for the buck? So you heard a lot of the district leaders talk about that, their overall strategy and how solutions like DreamBox or other solutions fit into their strategy. I think long term, it's my hope, we've been chasing this greyhound for years, that we have job embedded teacher professional development, so that is responsive to where they are now in their learning journey with the learner, with the student. And if we can provide actionable insights that we can provide dynamically, so that when students get stuck or when teachers have a question, you support them with what is relevant in that moment. That's when we're going to scale the best kind of blended learning. And that's when we're going to transform possibilities, even for the least well-served kids in our schools today.
And then one other thing that you've spoken about previously, Jessie, would be the focus on the parents. So,
Absolutely.
you know, we talk about PD for the professionals, right? We talk about that quite a bit. And many of us are engaged in professional development for parents, but not at the scale that it needs to be. So,
you know what, Darin? When we opened up our platform for free, we added about 2.3 million kids in about 8 weeks, and we thought that was a good thing. And then we realized that we had to do so much more for the home-based learning guardians. And I actually think that what you said is so important, because we're going to get back to some kind of new normal at some point when everyone's back at school. But I actually think that the relationship between the home-based learning guardian and the school-based learning guardian might be permanently changed. Parents are the X factor. And even parents who come from modest backgrounds are the most important variable, I think, to partner with our teachers for kids' success. I'm so glad you said that.
And you know, Griselda, one of the interesting inconsistencies in this is that while schools were closed, childcare was allowed to be open. It operates under different rules. So suddenly you have non-professional people are being the teachers of kids who are in school all day long, but it's childcare. So this, having the technology available, was a godsend for them, and for parents who don't speak English, who are having their kids at home and have become the teacher, but really struggle. The technology has been absolutely incredible and probably saved an awful lot of kids from a much wider achievement gap.
You're so right about that, because at the end of the day, we have to pay bills, we have to put food on the table. And so everybody had to take on that role of a guardian, right? A learning guardian, whether it was the older sibling, whether it was grandma, whether it was the babysitter, somebody had to take that role. So districts putting together a plan for that, you know, X factor, as mentioned earlier, was very, very critical. I'm going to close us out here with one last thing. So we've heard a great deal during the session about how EdTech solutions and programs are supporting educators through this distance learning pedagogical shift and helping to address student learning loss in meaningful, effective, and sustainable ways. So I commend all leaders and educators that have expertly developed and executed the digital learning plans without hesitation, demonstrated resilience, and kept their mission and purpose to keep learning going for all students. So that being said, I do want to end us here and kind of shift our attention to the hot topic that has been magnified due to the abrupt transition to online learning. Let's just take some time to address the elephant in the room, the effects of the digital divide in education. Prior to COVID-19, educational inequalities and systemic oppression were evident in educational systems, but these topics were not acknowledged or discussed to the level that they have been lately. So I know a few of our panelists have already kind of mentioned a few things here, but the lack of internet access and technology is impeding learning by limiting access to education during COVID-19. So I just like to pause and just give, you know, the panelists, those that haven't kind of spoken on the topic or just want to add a little bit more to what they've already mentioned. What are you all, what are some of those leadership moves that you've kind of considered that have helped address this undeniable challenge facing schools and communities?
I think every district immediately went out and purchased additional devices so that every kid would have a device. And the market for hotspots was very hot because in so many places, the kids couldn't use it without a hotspot. So having a device is useless if you're not connecting to the internet. So those were two moves that happened very early in the pandemic, and that have helped save us. And I think in the end, if we look at what's happening in the future, every kid will always have a device from now on. There will never be that kind of question again. And I think even our legislators are seeing they need to make sure that we have the money to keep that up, because obviously they have to be refreshed.
I think devices are very important, but broadband, in my mind, has to be treated like it's a utility. We can't have superintendents like Darin going out and having to make partnerships with the private sector in order to get his kids what they need. I was having a conversation with another superintendent who literally put up polls to help his rural students get access to broadband. We're asking too much of our superintendents if they have to do that on top of everything else. So we need coordinated federal and state policy. Do kids have electricity? Do kids have food? Do kids have broadband? Because we can put all the devices out there that we want, but if we don't give them adequate, I'm not just talking about a little, adequate access to broadband so that 5 people in the house can use it simultaneously and still use programs like DreamBox Learning. We have to have a scaled approach to solving this, because Darin is an exception. Darin is an exception. Not all superintendents have been able to get that done. And we have to figure out a way to get this done for all kids so that it is considered a basic right. Access is a basic right.
Hear, hear.
I agree, Jessie. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I think it's also crucial that all of these responses we're making are a sustained commitment to communities and families, and that districts don't get the mindset of, oh, we distributed devices, that's done, we solved the digital divide, that tutoring and remediation, like what we talked about here in Tennessee, one round of tutoring, we're back on track. This will ripple through children and families' lives for a generation. And we need to be committed to solving these issues of equity, both of technology access and teaching access over the long term.
And also grading policies. So, the D's and F's, how did you address them? Did you implement policies to allow students additional time to overcome the marks that were given? So, there's a lot that has been done, and a lot of ways of thinking about things moving forward to make sure that kids have as much access to do the best that they possibly can, whether it's through technology, whether it's through how teachers are assessing things, the additional time that may be needed, all of that. It all matters.
Thank you, Dr. Brawley. And again, thank you again to all the panelists for the compelling discussion to address EdTech solutions for mitigating learning loss. We appreciate you for sharing your expertise and stories and being with us today. I wish you continued success. Before closing out, I'm gonna take it over to Emily, my colleague, and she's gonna close out the session to provide you with a little bit more information on upcoming webinars.
Wow, thank you so much, Griselda. Thank you so much to you. What an incredible job moderating you did, and with your experience and understanding the sort of ins and outs and challenges and opportunities related to all of this. But thank you to each and every one of our expert panelists, our 3 district leaders and our 3 EdTech innovators. We really thank you for this incredible presentation, and to all of you participants who've kind of gave your questions and your comments and stuff. We really, really appreciate it. And of course, we hope that you'll join us for future webinars so you can see what we have going on next week on the slide. We have several. We will have webinars every week for the rest of the year. So you can look to your email. You'll be receiving updates on all the upcoming webinars, but this is what we have coming up immediately. And then also just wanted to remind everybody, all of the links that you've seen posted in the chat, the slides, the recording to this session, you will all receive that in a follow-up email that will either come to you later this week or beginning of next week. So thanks again to everybody for this incredible discussion today. Such an important learning opportunity, and we really, really appreciated learning from all of you. So thanks everybody, and have a good evening tonight. Take care.